You've arrived. The past welcomes you with open arms. Tonight, we drift into the Wild West, a place of dust, danger, and endless horizons. Before we begin, if these stories help you rest, a like or a subscribe would mean a lot. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from. It's always surreal to see people from Texas, Spain, or South Africa sharing the same story across time zones. Now, get comfortable, fix your pillows, pull your blanket close, let the noise of today fade, your eyes open not to glowing screens but to the creak of saloon doors, the smell of gunpowder and sweat, and the sun beating down on an unforgiving frontier town.
Hey, you just opened your eyes, and it is no longer today. The year is 1875. The first thing you notice is the light. It is sharp, golden, and almost painful. The sun beats down on you with a force you didn't think light could have, and the air around you feels thin, dry, and strange. You cough once, and dust rises from the earth beneath your boots. It clings to your tongue, to your throat, leaving behind a taste that is neither sweet nor bitter, but harsh and unyielding, like the land itself. You blink and look around. The world is wide, too wide. The land stretches in every direction, a flat plain broken only by a few lonely shrubs and the outline of purple mountains far, far away. The sky is massive, endless, and it makes you feel small, like you're standing in the palm of something ancient and indifferent. This is the Wild West. The silence is heavy. No humming machines, no car horns, no planes overhead. Instead, you hear the faint creak of a wooden windmill turning slowly in the breeze. Somewhere in the distance a crow caws, its cry sharp and ugly against the stillness. That is all. The world feels empty, but not safe. It feels as though something unseen is watching, waiting, just beyond the horizon. You take a breath and instantly regret it. The air is hot, heavy with dust, and already your lips feel dry. You realise how precious water is here. There are no faucets, no plastic bottles, no clean streams at every corner. If you want a drink, you must find a well, or hope a stranger allows you to share from their bucket. And in this place, kindness is not something you can expect. The first lesson of the Wild West arrives quickly. The land itself is not gentle. The sun can burn you at noon, and the cold can freeze you at night. People who live here know this truth in their bones. They carry it in every line of their weathered faces. You start walking, your boots crunching against gravel and sand. Each step kicks up a puff of dust that clings to your clothes. The horizon does not move closer. The mountains remain far away, shimmering in the heat. Then, just when your mouth feels too dry to swallow, you see it, a shape on the horizon. A cluster of wooden buildings, small and fragile against the endless sky. A town. Relief washes over you, but it is a nervous kind of relief. The West is filled with towns like this, here one day, gone the next, swallowed by drought, by debt, or by violence. As you get closer, the details sharpen. The buildings are rough, their wooden planks bleached grey by years of wind and sun. A few horses are tied to a rail outside what looks like a saloon. Its swinging doors creak back and forth in the hot breeze. A sign hanging from rusted chains sways with a hollow sound. The street is wide and empty, more dust than road. There is no cobblestone, no pavement, only the endless churn of hooves and wagon wheels. A blacksmith works in the open air, hammering a glowing piece of iron on his anvil. The sound rings out, clink, 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 each strike sharp in the stillness. Sparks fly, fading as quickly as they appear. Across the way, a woman in a plain cotton dress hauls a bucket of water from a well, pausing to wipe the sweat from her brow. 2 barefoot boys race past her, laughing, their voices carrying through the heavy heat. The town looks alive, but it also looks fragile. You can imagine how easily it could disappear, burned to ash by fire, buried by dust storms, or left behind when the well runs dry. Survival here feels like a coin toss, and every day you must flip it again. You glance toward the saloon. The doors swing as a man steps out. His hat is wide-brimmed, his vest dusty, his boots worn. At his side hangs a revolver. It rests casually on his hip, but there is nothing casual about it. Guns are part of life here. Tools, weapons, symbols of power. You can tell by the way people move, by the way they watch strangers like you, that danger is never far away. You wonder how long you could last in a place like this. 1 day, 2, already you're thirsty. Already your skin feels tight with heat. The townsfolk look strong, carved by hardship, and you, fresh from a softer time, feel unprepared, almost exposed. Still, curiosity pulls you forward. You step into the main street, letting your eyes wander over each building. A general store with faded paint, a sheriff's office with a single barred window, a church, its steeple crooked, its white paint peeling under the sun. This is not the West of polished stories and clean photographs. This is the West as it truly was. Harsh, dusty, alive in every struggle. A wagon creaks past, its wooden wheels groaning. Inside sits a family. Father, mother, 2 children. Their faces are tired, their clothes patched and faded. The father tips his hat politely, but his eyes linger on you a moment longer than comfort allows. He does not know you. He does not trust you. Out here, strangers mean risk. And risk can mean ruin. You stand in the middle of the town, surrounded by heat, dust and suspicion. And you realise something you hadn't before. The Wild West is not just a place. It is a test of body, of will, of spirit. To live here even a single day means to fight the land, the hunger, the thirst, and sometimes to fight each other. You take a slow breath and let your eyes wander again. Behind every doorway lies a story. Behind every weathered face, a struggle. You want to know more. You want to see what life here truly feels like, not in legend, not in movies, but in the slow rhythm of a day. And so, your journey begins. The morning in the Wild West does not wait for comfort. It begins not with alarms or clocks, but with the first crack of light stretching across the horizon, slipping between rough wooden shutters and waking you with its insistence. The rooster has already crowed. Somewhere outside, a wagon wheel squeals as it turns. Boots scuff against hard-packed earth. The town is alive before you even open your eyes. You wake in a small boarding house on the edge of town. The walls are thin, so thin you hear the cough of the man in the next room. The footsteps creaking on the stairs, the rattle of dishes below where the innkeeper prepares breakfast. Your bed is little more than a frame of wood, a thin mattress stuffed with straw that pricks through the fabric in places. You shift uncomfortably, pulling a worn wool blanket off your legs. The air is already warm, though the sun has barely risen. You rub your eyes, your throat dry, your lips cracked. Water. That is what you think of first. The innkeeper greets you downstairs with a clay jug and a tin cup. The water is cool but carries a faint metallic taste, the flavour of iron from the well. It is not the clear, filtered liquid you're used to. It feels rough on the tongue, but you drink anyway, because out here, thirst is not a matter of preference. It is a matter of survival. Breakfast is waiting. On a wooden table, the innkeeper sets out a plate. A biscuit, hard and crumbly, a strip of salted pork, chewy and sharp on the tongue, and a small cup of weak coffee, brewed from beans that came in on a wagon weeks ago. The coffee is thin, bitter, and nothing like the steaming mugs you might know. Yet here, it is a luxury. Each sip is a small reminder that someone somewhere carried these beans across deserts and rivers just so they could end up in your cup. The innkeeper, a woman with tired eyes and a kerchief around her hair, speaks little. She works quickly, setting bowls back on shelves, wiping down the table with a rag. Her hands are rough from labour. When she finally glances at you, her eyes are cautious. Strangers are not trusted easily here. The West has taught her that every new face could bring either help or trouble. Outside, the town is stirring. The sun climbs higher, already hot, baking the ground until it cracks. Dust rises with every step, clinging to boots, skirts, and wagon wheels. Cowboys are tightening saddles on their horses, preparing for long rides into the open plains. Ranchers guide cattle toward grazing fields beyond the town. Women sweep their porches, skirts brushing the earth as they work. Even the children are busy, carrying buckets of water, fetching kindling, feeding chickens. This is not a world where children have hours to play. Every hand, no matter how small, is needed to keep a family alive. But the rhythm of work is only part of the morning. As you walk down the main street, you notice something else. Attention, quiet, but unmistakable. Guns hang from belts. Men keep their hands close to them, even as they talk casually with neighbours. People glance at you with narrowed eyes. It is not personal, it is survival. In a place where law is thin and fragile, trust is rare. You pass the sheriff's office, a small building with one barred window and a sign that leans sideways. The sheriff himself sits outside, boots propped on the rail, hat tipped low. He watches you from beneath the brim, his expression unreadable. A revolver rests at his side. He does not speak, but you feel his eyes following you as you move on. Across the street, the blacksmith is at work again. His hammer rings out, striking glowing iron on an anvil. Sparks leap into the air, fading quickly. His arms shine with sweat, his shirt darkened with soot. The rhythm of his blows is steady, unbroken, as if the sound itself is part of the heartbeat of the town. Nearby, the general store creaks open its doors. Shelves inside are stocked with sacks of flour, bolts of cloth, jars of pickled vegetables, and barrels of nails. Nothing is abundant, nothing is cheap, and every item has travelled hundreds of miles to be here. The shopkeeper stands behind the counter, watching the street. He too has learned the West lesson. Nothing lasts unless it is guarded. Children chase each other down the road, barefoot, their laughter high and sharp. But even they glance over their shoulders, as if they know joy is fleeting here, easily broken by the arrival of danger. And danger always comes. It might arrive as a dust storm, sweeping across the plains, filling lungs with grit and burying fields in choking sand. It might come as drought, the well running dry, the livestock collapsing under the sun. Or it might come on horseback, a group of riders cresting the hill, guns at their sides, looking for money, food, or revenge. The Wild West has no clear border between peace and violence. Life here is balanced on the edge of a knife. As you stand in the middle of the street, you feel the weight of it. Every sip of water, every bite of food, Every safe step is earned through labour, luck, or danger. You could not last long here, not with soft hands, not with modern habits. Already your body craves shade, already your mind longs for comfort. Yet the people around you, they do not flinch, they do not complain. They were born into this. It is the only world they know. A wagon rattles past, drawn by 2 horses. Inside sits a woman holding a baby, her face pale, her eyes scanning the street with nervous energy. Behind her, a man drives the reins, his shoulders hunched against the sun. They are settlers, most likely, pushing west in search of land. For them, this town is not a destination, only a stop along the way. Tomorrow they'll leave again, chasing a dream that may never arrive. You realise then that the morning is not gentle, not kind. It demands everything from everyone. Labour from the young, strength from the old, courage from the weak. And yet, the town continues. The people endure. Life, even here, insists on being lived. The hammer strikes, the children laugh, the horses snort, the saloon doors creak. The day has only just begun, and already it feels heavy with struggle. You walk slowly, taking it all in, feeling the weight of the sun on your back. You wonder how long you could last in a world like this. 1 day, 2? The answer whispers in the dust around your boots. Not long. The sun climbs higher, and with it the land changes. By noon, the Wild West is no longer quiet. It groans under the weight of heat, light, and dust. The shadows grow short, pressed tight beneath wagons and porches. The sky itself seems to harden, a dome of burning blue stretching endlessly in every direction. There is no escape, no shade, no relief, only the certainty that the afternoon will be long and merciless. You step outside the saloon, where you had sought a moment of rest, and the air hits you like a wall. It is hot, dry and sharp, pulling the moisture from your skin and lips with every breath. Your throat, already rough from the morning, aches for water. You carry a tin cup filled earlier at the inn's well, but by now it is warm, the taste flat and stale. Out here, water never stays fresh for long. The street that was once busy with morning tasks is quieter now. Work has not stopped, but it has slowed. The blacksmith's hammer, once steady, is less frequent, each strike heavy and sluggish. Farmers who brought goods to town now stand in the shade of their wagons, wiping sweat from their brows. Children who laughed and ran just hours ago now linger in the darkened corners of porches, their games forgotten under the weight of the sun. Yet life cannot pause entirely. Ranch hands drive cattle down the dusty road, the animals lowing with thirst, their hides rippling with flies. The men walk beside them, their hats pulled low, bandanas tied over their faces to block the dust. Every few minutes one of them curses as a stubborn cow veers off, and he shouts, snapping a whip in the air. The animals scatter for a moment, but then fall back into line, driven onward toward a patch of grazing land where grass still clings to the soil. The cattle stir up dust that settles on everything. The windows of the general store, the skirts of women crossing the street, the barrels stacked outside the saloon. By the time the herd passes, you taste grit on your teeth. You cough, the dryness scraping down your throat. A man beside you spits into the dirt, shrugs and mutters, "That's just how it is." His voice is flat, resigned. Out here, complaint is wasted breath. The heat is not the only struggle of midday. Hunger joins it, creeping slowly but insistently. The inn served you a breakfast that carried you through the morning, but now your stomach reminds you that food is never guaranteed in the Wild West. You step into the general store, where the air is no cooler, but the shade is welcome. Inside, shelves are lined with sacks of flour, jars of beans, wheels of cheese hardened by weeks of storage, and barrels of dried meat salted to last. A thin man behind the counter looks up from his ledger, nods at you, then returns to his numbers. His eyes are pale, weary. He has seen too many travellers pass through, many with pockets too empty to buy what they need. The prices are high. A sack of flour costs nearly a day's wages for a farmhand. Coffee beans, once a comfort, are now a rare treasure. Fresh vegetables are almost non-existent unless you count a few wrinkled potatoes at the back of the room. You realise that in this world, meals are built not for pleasure, but for survival. Bread, beans, meat if you are lucky, and water if you are luckier still. You leave the store with only a small purchase, a strip of jerky and a biscuit wrapped in cloth. The jerky is hard, almost too tough to chew. The biscuit crumbles in your hands, dry and chalky, yet you eat both, because here, food is fuel. Taste does not matter. Back outside, the world feels even harsher. The ground radiates heat. Horses stand tied to posts, heads lowered, their tails swishing at flies. The sheriff sits in the same chair as before, but now even he looks worn, his hat pulled lower, his boots resting still. He smokes a cigar that burns slow, the smoke drifting upward in thin spirals. Across the way, the church bell tolls once, low and heavy, not for service but as a signal. The town preacher has stepped outside, his black coat hanging limp on his thin frame, his collar damp with sweat. He calls out the few gathered near him, reminding them of prayer at sundown. His voice is soft, almost swallowed by the heat, but those who hear him nod solemnly. Faith, even here, clings stubbornly to life, just like the people who practice it. But midday is not just about thirst, hunger and heat. It is also about danger, for the Wild West is never quiet for long. A sudden commotion breaks the lull. From the north end of town a rider appears. His horse is lathered with sweat, foam dripping from its mouth, its hooves pounding against the earth. The rider leans low, urging it forward, his shirt darkened with dust and sweat. He pulls up sharply near the saloon, dismounts in a hurry, and shouts something to the men outside. The words carry down the street like a ripple through still water. Raiders! The sound is enough to still the town. Conversation dies. Children are pulled inside by worried mothers. Shopkeepers close shutters, bar doors. The blacksmith drops his hammer with a heavy clang, wiping his brow as he steps forward to listen. The sheriff straightens in his chair, tossing aside his cigar, hand on the revolver at his hip. Raiders. It could mean bandits, outlaws, or desperate settlers with nowhere left to turn. Whoever they are, they bring with them fire, bullets, and fear. You feel it in your chest, the way the air itself thickens, the way every sound sharpens into focus. The West is fragile, always moments away from breaking. And now, as the sun burns directly overhead, that fragility reveals itself once more. The sheriff speaks at last, his voice calm but firm. Get inside, stay quiet, let me handle it. He nods to the rider, who swallows hard, then ties his exhausted horse to the post. The animal shakes its head, steam rising from its flanks. Slowly the town folds inward. Doors close, windows shutter, voices hush. The street, once filled with dust and noise, empties until only the sheriff stands there, waiting. The silence is heavy, thick, broken only by the occasional creak of wood or the flap of a cloth in the wind. You stand at the window of the inn, peering through a narrow gap in the shutters. Your heart beats faster. You came here thinking of cowboys, adventure, and open skies, But now you see the truth. In this land, violence is not a story. It is a shadow that follows every step, every meal, every breath. The sun beats down, the dust settles, and somewhere beyond the hills, raiders are coming. The question is not if they will arrive. The question is when. The afternoon stretches long, the air pressed flat by heat, and the silence of the town feels like it could shatter with the faintest sound. You remain at the window, your hand against the wooden frame, peering through the narrow slit of light. Dust swirls across the road, stirred by a restless wind, and the sheriff still stands alone in the middle of the street. His boots are planted firmly in the dirt, his hand never far from the pistol at his hip. Time drags. Every heartbeat feels heavy, loud, as if the entire town is listening to it. Then, far off, like the whisper of a storm, you hear it. Hooves. At first it is faint, only a low rumble, like thunder rolling across the plains, but it grows, steady, relentless. Soon the sound becomes a rhythm, the unmistakable pounding of horses riding fast, carrying men toward the fragile safety of this place. The townsfolk shift nervously behind their shutters. A child whimpers before being hushed by her mother. The preacher stands inside the church, clutching his worn Bible, murmuring words no one else can hear. At the blacksmith's shop, a hammer lies abandoned on the anvil, dust settling where sparks should have been. The sound grows louder, closer, until at last they appear. Out from the shimmering horizon come the riders. Dust rises behind them in great clouds, turning the air hazy, blurring the line between sky and earth. There are 8 of them, men dressed in worn coats and hats pulled low, rifles slung across their backs, pistols hanging heavy from their belts. Their horses are lean and hard, nostrils flaring, eyes wide. These are not men seeking trade. They are raiders, hungry for coin, food, or worse. The sheriff does not move. He simply waits, shoulders squared, jaw tight, his figure small but steady in the vast emptiness of the street. The riders slow as they enter town, the sound of hooves echoing against the wooden walls. One man at the front, broader than the rest, pulls his horse to a stop in front of the sheriff. His face is shadowed by his hat, but his grin flashes white in the sun. "Well, well," he drawls, his voice lazy but sharp. "Ain't this a quiet little place? Thought we'd stop by, see what the good folks here might share with us." The sheriff doesn't flinch. His voice is calm, steady, but carries enough weight for all to hear. This town doesn't want trouble. Turn your horses round and ride back the way you came. The raider chuckles, glancing back at his men. They laugh with him, not loudly, but with that low, dangerous tone of men who don't fear much. He looks back at the sheriff, tipping his hat just enough to reveal eyes hard as stone. "See, that's the problem," he says. "We already rode too far. We're tired, thirsty, and hungry. Be a shame if your fine little town turned us away." Behind the shutters, townsfolk hold their breath. You can almost feel the tension pushing against the air, thick and unyielding. One wrong word, one wrong move, and the street could erupt in gunfire. The sheriff's hand hovers near his pistol, but still he does not draw. You'll find water at the creek 1/2 mile south. Grass for your horses too, but you won't take from these people. The standoff lingers, sweat beads on the raider's brow, though whether from the heat or from frustration you cannot tell. His horse shifts beneath him, hooves pawing at the dirt, nostrils flaring. The men behind him murmur restlessly, fingers brushing the grips of their pistols, and then, suddenly, laughter breaks the tension. The raider leans back in his saddle, shaking his head. "You got guts, Sheriff. I'll give you that." He spits into the dirt, then gestures with a gloved hand toward the saloon. "But guts don't fill bellies. We'll be taking food, drink, and maybe a bit of coin. Just enough to keep us riding." The sheriff doesn't answer right away. He tilts his head, studying the man, studying the group. Behind him, the town is silent, every soul hidden but watching, waiting. The air feels like it might crack under the weight of it all. Finally, the sheriff speaks again, low and steady. "If you take a step toward that saloon, I'll stop you. If you draw a gun, I'll stop you. If you hurt anyone here," his voice grows harder, "I'll bury you myself." The street falls silent. Not even the wind dares to move. The raiders shift uneasily, their confidence flickering. They had expected fear, surrender. Instead, they find a wall of resolve. One man mutters something under his breath. Another spits into the dirt, glancing nervously at the windows that line the street. They know, as you do, that the townsfolk may be hidden, but they are not helpless. A rifle barrel peeks from one shutter. A shotgun rests in the hands of a farmer crouched behind a water trough. This town, though small, is ready to fight if pushed. The raider leader narrows his eyes. For a long moment you think the street will explode. Gunfire, shouting, chaos. But then, with a slow shake of his head, he pulls gently on his reins. His horse steps back, tossing its mane. "Fine," he mutters. "Not today." He turns, spitting once more into the dust. His men grumble, some glaring, others sighing with relief. One by one they pull their horses around, the sound of hooves filling the air again. The dust rises, thicker now, and in moments they are gone. Back into the shimmering distance swallowed by the horizon. The sheriff does not move until the last hoofbeat fades. Then slowly he exhales, lowering his hand from his pistol. His shoulders sag just slightly, the weight of the moment lifting. From inside the houses, shutters creak open. Doors ease ajar. The people of the town step out cautiously, faces pale, eyes wide. Mothers hold their children close. Men glance nervously down the road where the raiders disappeared. For now the danger is past, but the memory will linger, and everyone knows they will be back, or others like them. The preacher steps forward, his Bible still in hand, and mutters a prayer of thanks. The blacksmith picks up his hammer again, striking metal with shaky hands. The innkeeper offers the sheriff a drink of water, which he accepts silently, wiping dust from his mouth. You remain by the window, heart still pounding. You thought of the Wild West as a place of adventure, of freedom and wide skies. But now you see the truth more clearly. It is also a place of constant threat. Survival depends not only on food, water or shelter, but on courage, on unity, on the thin line between peace and violence. The sun is still high, the heat still merciless, yet the town slowly resumes its rhythm as if nothing happened. Because in the Wild West life cannot pause for long. Work must be done. Animals must be fed. Families must carry on no matter what shadows pass through the street. The day continues, and the Wild West waits for its next test. The sun begins its slow descent, and with it, the harsh edges of the day soften. The sky shifts from searing blue to a warm wash of gold and rose, the colours stretching wide across the horizon. The heat, so heavy only hours before, loosens its grip. A breeze picks up, carrying with it mingled scents of dust, wood smoke and dry grass. For the first time all day, the town breathes. The sheriff, who had stood like stone in the street, finally returns to his chair, though his eyes still scan the distance. Mothers open doors to let children back outside, and their laughter, hesitant at first, gradually rises again. Horses stamp their hooves and shake their manes, eager for feed, and though the shadow of the raiders lingers in every mind, life, as it must, resumes. You step out from the inn where you had hidden through the tense hours of afternoon. The boards creak under your boots, and the air feels lighter, cooler, almost forgiving. Across the way, the blacksmith is back at his anvil, though his strikes are slower now, less about business and more about habit. Sparks flash briefly before fading into the dusk. The general store closes early. Its keeper, thin and tired, sweeps dust from his porch before pulling the door shut, a lantern already glowing faintly behind the glass. He nods as you pass, not with friendliness exactly, but with the silent acknowledgement of one survivor to another. In the West, such small gestures mean more than words. As the light fades, families gather around cookfires. The smell of beans simmering in iron pots drifts through the air, mingling with the sharper scent of frying salt pork. Flatbread cooks on stones, its edges blackening from the flames. A few lucky households roast corn, the crackle of kernels filling the silence between voices. Supper in the Wild West is not grand, but it is sacred. A moment to fill the belly, to rest tired hands, to remind one another that they are still alive. You're invited to sit with a family outside their small cabin on the edge of town. Their home is nothing more than a single room of rough-hewn logs, but the warmth of their welcome is genuine. The father, a wiry man with sunburned skin, ladles beans into a tin bowl for you. His wife offers a heel of bread, torn in two, while their children look at you curiously, whispering behind their hands. The food is plain, yet in your hunger it tastes rich. The beans are thick, smoky, with a hint of spice. The bread, though dry, carries the flavour of flour, hard-earned and harder kept. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, as the family shares quiet stories about the day, about chores done, animals tended, and the fear that passed when the raiders rode through. When the meal ends, the father wipes his bowl clean with a scrap of bread, then sets it aside with a nod of satisfaction. His wife hums softly as she gathers the dishes, the sound weaving into the rising chorus of crickets. The children chase each other in the fading light, their laughter ringing out clear, unbroken by the shadows that stalk this world. As the last of the sun dips below the horizon, the town begins to glow, not with electricity, but with lanterns and firelight. Yellow flames flicker in windows, casting long shadows across the dirt road. A group of men gather outside the saloon, their voices low as they share drinks and the news of the day. A fiddle begins to play, hesitant at first, then stronger, filling the evening with music that carries both joy and sorrow. You wander toward the sound, drawn as if by instinct. Inside the saloon, the mood is alive in a way the day never allows. Men slap cards on wooden tables, their faces serious but their laughter breaking through at lucky hands. A woman in a bright dress serves mugs of frothy beer, her movements quick and practiced, her smile sharp enough to cut through weariness. The air smells of tobacco and sweat, but beneath it all is something else. A shared relief that another day has ended without disaster. In the corner, the fiddler plays faster now, joined by a man tapping rhythm on a worn drum. Boots stamp against the floor in time with the beat, and soon couples spin across the room, skirts twirling, spurs jangling. The music, though simple, transforms the space. It is not just entertainment, it is escape. For a few short hours, the burdens of the Wild West, the hunger, the heat, the danger, fade into rhythm, into laughter, into the comfort of song. Outside, the night deepens. The stars reveal themselves, scattered thick across the vast unbroken sky. Without lamps or engines to dim them, they blaze bright, endless, eternal. The moon rises pale and round, its light silvering the rooftops, washing the street in quiet glow. Coyotes yip from the hills, their cries drifting on the wind. The horses in their pens answer with restless snorts, hooves shifting nervously in the dirt. You step away from the saloon for a moment, standing in the stillness of the night. The laughter and music spill faintly from behind you, but ahead the horizon stretches silent and infinite. You realise then what it must feel like to live here, not just for a day, but for a lifetime. Every moment is a balance between danger and peace, between fear and courage, between survival and surrender. In the Wild West, you never know if the morning will bring raiders, drought, fire, or famine. But for now, for this quiet moment at sunset, there is food in your belly, music in your ears, and stars above your head, and that is enough. As the town settles, families draw close around their fires, telling stories to the children, stories of old homelands, of travels across rivers and plains, of hope that tomorrow will be kinder. The preacher kneels in the church, whispering prayers for safety. The sheriff, ever watchful, leans back in his chair, hat tilted, revolver within reach. And you, weary from the long day, feel the pull of rest. The bed at the inn may be rough, the blanket scratchy, but it will be a place to close your eyes. Yet as you look out one last time at the quiet town bathed in moonlight, you understand. Rest is not safety here. Night holds its own challenges, and the Wild West does not sleep easily. The stars spread endlessly across the night sky, sharp and bright as scattered diamonds. The air, once heavy with heat, now cools quickly, the chill seeping through your clothes. The Wild West does not believe in balance. It scolds you by day and freezes you by night, forcing you to carry both burdens within a single day. The town lies quiet at first. Lanterns flicker in windows, their lights small and fragile against the weight of the darkness. The saloon glows brighter than the rest, laughter and fiddle music leaking out through swinging doors. But beyond its glow, shadows deepen. The dirt road grows empty, the porches silent, the town folding itself into the uneasy arms of night. You settle into your narrow bed at the inn, the blanket rough against your skin. The wood creaks around you, the building shifting with the cool night air. Through the thin walls you hear muffled voices from other rooms, someone coughing, a baby crying, the low murmur of tired conversation. These sounds comfort you, reminding you that you're not alone in this fragile place. But the Wild West is never truly still. From the hills beyond the town a coyote calls, its voice is long, mournful, almost human in its sorrow. Another answers, and another, until the night carries their chorus. Horses in their pens grow restless, stamping hooves, snorting uneasily. You wonder if the animals know something you do not. You drift between wakefulness and sleep, the line blurred by the exhaustion of the long day. Then a sound pulls you back fully, a crash, sharp and sudden, shattering the night. A shout follows, then another. The innkeeper's voice rises down the hall, hurried and anxious. You push yourself to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see. The street below is alive again, but not with music or laughter. Two men stumble out of the saloon, fists swinging, voices raised. Their fight spills into the dust, fueled by whiskey, pride, and whatever insults had been traded across a card table. One man draws a knife, its blade glinting in the lamplight, while the other reaches clumsily for his pistol. The sheriff is already there. Hat tilted low, pistol drawn, his voice slices through the chaos. "Drop it!" Now the men freeze, their drunken anger colliding with the cold edge of reality. For a heartbeat you fear they will ignore him, the blood will spill into the dust. But slowly, grudgingly, the knife drops. The pistol is shoved back into its holster. The sheriff keeps his revolver steady until both men stumble back into the shadows, muttering curses under their breath. The street falls quiet again, but the peace feels thinner now, fragile as glass. Violence is never far in the Wild West. It can rise from hunger, thirst, greed, or simply from the weight of too many hard days. You step back from the window, heart still quickened. The innkeeper knocks softly at your door, checking if you're awake, if you're well. His voice is calm, but his eyes betray weariness. He has lived through too many nights like this, too many close calls. You lie down once more, though sleep is harder now. Every sound carries weight. The creak of the floorboards, the distant call of coyotes, the faint ring of the blacksmith's hammer as he works late into the night, perhaps to chase away his own unease. Then another sound, different, low at first, then growing. Not hooves this time, not voices, but crackling, a hiss. The smell reaches you before the truth does, the sharp, biting scent of smoke. Fire. The sheriff, a tall man with tired eyes, steps from his office, his star pinned against a faded vest. He rests his hand near his belt, not on the gun itself, but close enough to remind anyone watching that order still has a name here. He scans the street, nods once, then walks toward the saloon with the slow, deliberate gait of a man who knows every step could matter. But riders are not the only danger the afternoon brings. Beyond the town, where the land opens wide, shadows stir. Coyotes slip through the brush, their bodies low, their movements patient. They search for scraps, for weak calves left untended, for chickens that stray from their pens. Farther out, wolves move in packs, lean with hunger, watching herds from the cover of low ridges. And above, circling against the hot white sky, vultures wait. They know the West too well. They know that life is fragile here, and death is never far behind. Even the land itself conspires against those who live upon it. The wind begins to shift, carrying with it a dry howl that rattles loose shutters and stirs grit into the air. Dust devils twist across the plain, spinning suddenly, then collapsing as quickly as they appear. Farmers glance nervously at the horizon, for they know how swiftly a dust storm can rise, swallowing the sky, choking cattle, burying crops. Yet the work goes on. Ranch hands ride back into town with cattle driven before them, dust clinging to their clothes. Wagons arrive with supplies, barrels of flour, sacks of beans, coils of rope. Traders haggle in the open street, their voices raised above the clamour, while townsfolk gather to inspect what goods have survived the long road. A child tugs at his mother's sleeve, pointing at a bolt of bright cloth, dreaming of something finer than plain cotton. But not all who ride into town come for trade. Some come for opportunity, the kind that lurks in the shadows. In the alleys behind the saloon, two men whisper together, their hats pulled low. Their eyes dart toward the bank at the end of the street, its window shuttered against the glare. They speak of weakness, of chance, of coin locked away in a safe no thicker than a barrel. The West, after all, is not built on honesty alone. It is also built on risk, on men willing to take what they cannot earn. As afternoon stretches on, you sense the town tightening once more, like a rope pulled taut. Suspicion lingers, fear waits, and above it all hangs the question every soul here must ask, day after day. Will trouble pass us by, or will it stop at our door? The sheriff emerges again, this time stepping onto the saloon's porch. His face gives nothing away. The riders remain inside, voices low, their laughter carrying through the open windows like the scrape of a blade against stone. For now, there is no gunfire, no shouting, only the steady hum of unease. The town goes about its business, but every glance is sharper, every ear tuned to the sound of boots, of chairs, of anything that might hint at the beginning of violence. And you realise, as the sun dips lower in the sky, that survival in the West is not only about hunger or thirst, nor even about heat or storms, it is about vigilance. Every day is a balance between trust and suspicion, between welcome and defence. To live here is to walk a narrow line, knowing that at any moment riders may bring trade or ruin, strangers may offer friendship or death. The dust settles slowly as the afternoon wanes. Horses shift at their rails, restless. A dog barks from a porch, sharp and sudden, then falls silent. The sky begins to soften, hints of orange brushing the edges of clouds. But the tension does not fade. Not yet. Not here. Because in the Wild West, danger does not always strike with warning. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it lingers in the corners of a saloon, in the eyes of men at a card table, in the creak of leather as a hand drifts too close to a revolver. Sometimes the afternoon passes quietly, until it doesn't. And as you stand in the street, the sun blazing behind the riders' tethered horses, you wonder how anyone could ever relax here. How anyone could close their eyes at night and trust the morning to come,